Hi, my name is Amanda Lynn Petron, and this is my YouTube channel. About a year ago, I published my first book, Shards of Glass, which has officially made me a published author. I have been overwhelmed by all the support that I've received from friends, family, and even complete strangers. So I decided that in case any of you guys were also looking to get into the self-publishing game, I would tell you the 10 things that I wish that I had done that I did not. So number 10 would be to create a logline. As soon as people know that you're writing a book, they're all going to ask you, what is it about? It took me forever to find a succinct way to explain that Shards of Glass is about a girl who's forced to live with her father that she hasn't seen since he abandoned the family when she was little. It would have been so much easier if when people asked what the story was about, I didn't just mumble something confusing, because that just makes people lose all faith in my storytelling skills and makes them have no interest in reading the book because they don't really know what it's about and I'm not making it sound interesting. So in the future, if you could just have like one sentence that sums up the book and a hook that makes them want to read it. I still don't have one for the Owens Chronicles, but I am working on it. Number 9 would be audiobooks. So I'm really glad that I released my book in different formats. I have the ebook, I have the paperback, and I have the hardcover. A lot of new authors will just start with the ebook, and then if they have a lot of sales, they'll move on to other formats. But in my case, most of my sales were to people that I know who really wanted to support me with a physical copy of my book. So most of my sales are paperbacks. It also really makes it real and makes you feel like a real author when you can hold the hardcover, or like if you can hold it in your hands. It's like I'm a legitimate author, you know? Audiobooks were on my schedule. They were in my launch plan from the get-go. I even have so many friends that are recording audiobooks and narrating them because my day job is as an actress. So it would have been so easy for me to just get on board with this, but I have been putting it off and delaying it. So that's definitely on my list of things to do for 2021. Number 8 is hiring a professional editor. So professional editing, it costs a lot of money. It can be pretty pricey, which is the excuse I gave as to why I didn't do one. The real reason was that I was terrified that an editor would read my book and tell me it was terrible. Then I wouldn't publish anything. This is a horrible mentality that it's not at all helpful if you want to release the best book possible, because, okay, so self-publishing it's a misnomer, because the self-publishing doesn't mean you're supposed to do it all on your own. It just means that you have control ultimately and you do it the way you want, sort of like you're in control of the decisions, but you should still have a team of people helping you out. Before your book gets published, you should have it read by critique partners, beta readers, and hopefully professional editors. My mom is absolutely amazing. She is all of those things. And a lot of people say that you can't have your family edit your work. I don't agree, because my mom read it. I was like, okay, this is ready to be published. I just have to work on the typos. I gave her a copy to read, and she's like, you have way too many characters. You need to change the entire story. So I had to rewrite the entire thing, and the book is a lot better because of it. But she wasn't afraid to tell me the truth because she loves me, and although she doesn't want to hurt me, she doesn't want me to release a book that's not as good as what she knows I can produce. So ultimately, contrary to my initial fears, an editor is actually the best way that you can ensure your book doesn't suck, because they will look at it, tell you what is wrong with it, and hopefully either help you to fix it or at least point out the mistakes that you can fix on your own. So you can publish your book with confidence knowing that it's really good. Number 7 would be to promote my books to a target audience. When I released my books, I kind of just wrote on Facebook, hey, I published a book. If you want to read it, here it is. I didn't promote with any way that was paid. I didn't research who I was writing the book for. I didn't look into tropes or different genres, really. I just kind of wrote the book and then sent it out there and hoped that somebody would buy it. Which is great, because a lot of people did, way more than I ever expected. But I'd say about 95% of them are either related to me or friends or family and stuff like that. Ideally, I would not be making money off of those people. In my dream world, I would write a book and send all these people a copy of the book as a thank you for all the help that they've given me throughout my life and for supporting me on this journey. So ideally, I would like to figure out who the book is for before I release it, so that I can market it to those people and sell the book to people who will love it for the book and not just because I wrote it. In line with that, number 6 is to stick to one genre, at least at first. So my first book, Shards of Glass, is it's a contemporary young adult novel, which is about a lot of family issues, kind of drama, kind of heavy and sad, if I'm going to be honest. Whereas my second book that I released under the same name is like a paranormal adventure about like there's magic powers, there's a big bad you have to defeat, and none of those are present in Shards of Glass. And it would be so much easier if I could market the book and then be like, hey, if you really like that book, you'll like this other book because they're similar. Whereas right now it's like, I have a bunch of different books in different genres. Hopefully you'll like one and then try the other ones. So knowing myself and my personal taste, I would never be able to write in one genre exclusively. But I could have published like a few books in one genre and then switch to another one once I had a bit of an audience to follow me. Number 5, I wish I'd written all the books in the series and then rapid released. So this one isn't so much for Shards of Glass, but about my first year as a published author in general. So there's 2 parts. First of all, for marketing, a lot of people will say that nothing sells your book better than the next book. That's true as long as your first book does well, which mine didn't. It did way better than I expected, but not enough for the rapid release to have really worked. But if people buy your book and they really like it, it's so much better if they can go straight on to reading book number 2 and straight on to book number 3, and then they have a whole entire trilogy that they've just read in a weekend. You know, it's easy if they have access to everything. Whereas I had intentions of publishing a lot faster, but I had one book come in November, one in June, and then the final book is coming out in a couple of weeks in September. So for marketing, it would have been a lot better if I could have written them all, edited them all, and then rapidly released them like every one a month or something like that. The second one is that even though I planned it out the entire book from start to finish, I knew like the last chapter, I knew what was happening during the entire series. That changed as I rewrote. Like every book became so much different than what I'd initially set out, and I did the mistake of publishing the first one before I'd written the second one, before I'd written the third one, and some people who read the book had some really strong opinions. I actually have a cousin who told me, if you don't change this, I am never talking to you again. And initially I hadn't been planning on changing that. Like that was like, no, that's the story, that's what happens. But after more than one person mentioned this, and I reviewed the story, and I realized that it's so much stronger if I don't, because a lot of things had changed that what I originally had didn't make so much sense anymore. But the point being, if I had written them all ahead of time and like sent them out to beta readers and like really had the entire trilogy before I released it, I wouldn't have been so influenced by other people's opinions of the books, and the story it probably would have been less good, but at least would have been stayed true to what the story was in my mind. So number 4 is a mailing list. I mentioned it earlier that my launches would have gone a lot better if I had an audience who was eager to read the books, and I didn't really do that. I read that I had to do this, so I started a MailChimp account, and in my MailChimp account I had 13 subscribers. 3 of them were my multiple email addresses. I think 7 of them were my relatives, and maybe 3 of them came up from a sign up that I put on a website. If I could have launched these books with an email list of like hundreds of or 1,000 people or something like that, even if like 1% of them bought the book, that would have been amazing. And they also say like Facebook, Instagram, all these platforms like Amazon, you get no information from the people who buy your book. You have no idea how to track them, how to let them know that your next book is out. You're at the mercy of all these different platforms. Whereas with your mailing list, you have email addresses. So every time you release a new book, you can track those people down and be like, hey, I know you really liked the first one. Here's the second one if you're interested. And since they gave you their email address willingly, you'd assume that hopefully they're down for that. I didn't know how to build a mailing list until I found Story Origin. If you're an author who's just starting out, definitely go to them. Right now they're in the beta process, so their whole thing is free, which is amazing. And what you can do is you can do newsletter swaps and promos and all kinds of things that basically build up your mailing list so much faster than signups on my website. I started with them when I had, I think, like 14 subscribers. I went with ConvertKit, switched from MailChimp, and now I'm up to like 100 subscribers from MailSwaps, which is just basically at the bottom of my newsletter, I'll put a picture of somebody's book with their blurb and a link and say like, hey, if you really liked my book, here are some books that you might enjoy as well. And they'll do the same for mine, and then people will click on it, and it could bring them to my Amazon page, it can bring them to my website, it can bring them to a download where they can get the book for free with a reader magnet. A few weeks ago, I did a sale on my books on Shards of Glass. And so I did promo sites, I did Facebook, I did all over the place. And I got 6 sales, which not what I was expecting, but all 6 of them actually came from newsletter swaps. So newsletter swaps are like the bomb. Go for it. Number 3 is reader magnets. So what a reader magnet is that you either you can take one of your existing novels and you let it be a free download in exchange for somebody's email address. What you can also do is you can write a short story. Like if you have a series, the best thing to do is to write a prequel to your series. Something like a beginning, a middle, and end, like a full, complete story that you put for free as long as people give you their email address. What this does is it lets them have a taste of your writing. It lets them see if they like you as a writer, your storytelling, the story in general, and then they can go on and read the rest of your series. So it might be you're giving away something for free, but the potential of what you're getting in return is so much greater. So it's a great way to build up your mailing list with Story Origin, and it also is a great way to have people discover you and discover your writing and to build up lifelong fans. So number 2 is to find a writing community. So when I started out, I've read a lot of blogs. I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I listened to a lot of podcasts, but I was always listening. I was never participating. I joined a Facebook group called 20 Books to 50K. And again, I was reading all of their posts and they're so inspiring and I love them, but I never really participated until COVID started. The group did a post about if any authors have any skills that they can offer up to help somebody else out, like write it here. And one girl offered to be a beta reader. So I was about to publish my second book of the Owens Chronicles series, and I was like, you know what? I could use a beta reader who isn't related to me. So I reached out to her. I told her it was the second book. I sent her 1 and 2, and she didn't just beta read. She actually kind of professionally edited the entire second book for me. She also gave me a lot of notes on the first, but I couldn't really change them because it's already out. But I realized that I was doing dialogue tags wrong my entire life. I never was taught how to use them, and I kind of just went approximately how I thought they should be, and I was doing it wrong. Being in a writer community, it gives you a chance to find out that you're doing that wrong, first of all. But it gives you a chance to like talk about things and learn things. There's so many skills that you can share throughout the groups. And also, writing can be really, really lonely. I mean, if you're lucky, you can be a full-time author, which means that you spend your days sitting at home writing by yourself. You don't have coworkers, you don't go to work every day, you don't even have a commute. It's like you're just at home writing by yourself. And if you do have a job that you have to write on the side of, often you'll skip out on like lunch with coworkers or like break room chats, coffee breaks and stuff so that you can be writing instead. I know that personally when I'm on set, sometimes everybody else is sitting there talking to each other, building relationships and talking and making friends, and I'm just sitting in a corner like editing my book or writing a new one. So it can be really lonely, but having a writer community of people who understand what you're going through and are also going through the same thing, it's amazing, not only for like social wise, but just for mental health. It's really great to be able to be inspired by people who know what you're going through. Number 1 is kind of a harder one, but it's also the most important because I think everything else on this list can be summed up by believing in myself. I mean, if I knew that my book was great and had faith in it, I would have told them about what it was about instead of just like mumbling something incomprehensible and hoping that they'd shift the focus into somebody else. I would have not been afraid that people wouldn't like my voice, and I would have recorded the audiobooks. I would have sent my book to an editor instead of being afraid that they think my book sucked. You know, like there's so many things that would have worked out so much better if I had believed in myself. Like when it comes to my acting career, if I need headshots, if I need new classes or anything like that, I get it done. Like I studied in London, I studied in Los Angeles. I invested in that career like it was nobody's business. Now when it comes to writing, like it literally took 3 phone calls with my mom before I agreed to like buy Vellum. It's like, are you sure? Should I really invest this much money into my writing career? And it was $300, which is a lot for one book. But if I plan to write until I die, which I do, it comes out to like a tiny fraction, like not even $1 per book by the end of it, because I plan to publish a lot of books. But I was so reluctant because I was like, what if this career doesn't work out? What if nobody likes my writing? Like this is a huge investment, and what if it doesn't work out? But the thing is, if you don't believe in yourself, who's going to believe in you? If you don't believe in your book and you can't promote it properly, nobody's going to find it, nobody's going to buy it. You're not going to make it if you don't believe in yourself. And I'm not saying that I've completely changed and I think that I'm the best, but I think that I have a better understanding of my skills and my shortcomings. So like with the dialogue tags, I wasn't like, oh shoot, I can't write dialogue tags, I'm not a writer, I can't do this, let's just give up now. It was like, no, I didn't know how to do dialogue tags, but now I'm going to research it, I'm going to figure it out so that my next book will be better. And that's my goal now, is to constantly be improving, constantly be doing better, to just release the best work that I can, and for that to always be improving. These 10 things are things that I really wish that I had done, and I will use them in the future. But I am so proud of myself for what I have done in this past year. I have published 3 books, very nearly 4, and none of this would have been possible if I hadn't taken the leap and published the first one. I was letting my fears stop me for 2 decades that I've been wanting to publish books, and I kept stopping myself with this fear that I was going to be judged, that I wouldn't be good enough, that people wouldn't like it. And that to say, if these 10 tips are great and you should follow them, but if I can leave you one piece of advice, do it. If you want to write a book, write it. If you want to publish your book, then edit it the best you can, make it the best product it can be, but publish it. Because if I hadn't, if I was waiting for the books to be perfect and to have my mailing list and the reader magnet and all these other things, I would still be sitting here with no books instead of 3, and I would still be wishing I had done it. And right now I'm like, oh, if only I had launched, I wrote Shards of Glass over 10 years ago, and I'm like, if only I had published it back then and had been publishing consistently since then, imagine where I would be now. So if I have one piece of advice other than the 10 from my list, is start today. Do it now. So I hope you enjoyed my top 10 list of things that I wish I had done for my book launches, and happy reading!